Hello guys! So, let's go talk about the division of the skeletal system. It is so important, especially in anatomy. This will serve as your backbone into anatomy. So, we have two main divisions in the skeletal system. So, we have the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton consists your cranium, facial portion, hyoid, ossicles, vertebral column, and thorax, like everything in the middle. While in the appendicular are mostly your upper and lower extremities, like your arms, shoulder, arms, and wrist, your legs. So how I like to think of it is that your axial region is the ones in the middle, and the appendicular are your arms and legs. So, I will be discussing cranium and facial portion. So, cranium is a chamber enclosing the brain, houses the ear, and forms part of the eye socket. There are 8 cranial bones po: temporal, frontal, parietal, occipital, sphenoid, and ethmoid bone. Ang frontal bone po is the flat bone that makes up your forehead. It also forms the upper portion of your eye sockets. Ang parietal naman po ay pair po siya na flat bones located on either side po ng ating ulo. Temporal bone po is ito po ay pair of irregular bones located naman po siya under each of the parietal bones. Ang occipital bone naman po ay flat bone din po siya located in the very back of your skull. Dito po. At next naman po is sphenoid bone. Ang sphenoid bone po is irregular bone that sits below the frontal bone. It spans the width of your skull and forms a large part of the base of your skull. Lastly po is the ethmoid bone. The ethmoid bone is the irregular bone located po in front of the sphenoid bone. It makes up part of your nasal cavity. So next is facial portion. Our facial portion has 14 facial bones. Ang 14 facial bones na po yan ay ang nasal, lacrimal, inferior nasal concha, maxilla, mandible, vomer, zygomatic, and palatine. It forms the face and the chambers and also the sensory organs. So, in human anatomy and development, the facial skeleton is sometimes called the membranous viscerocranium, which comprises the mandible dermatocranial elements that are not part of the brain base.
Hyoid bone is a U-shaped bone in the neck which support the thumb. There are 3 parts of the hyoid bone: the body, the greater horn, and the lesser horn. The body is the central part of the bone. It has anterior convex surface and a concave post surface. The greater horn it acts as a site of attachment for numerous neck muscles. The lesser horn arises from the superior aspect of the hyoid bone near the origin of the greater horn. Ossicles. It transmits sounds to the middle ear. There are 3 ear bones of the ossicles: the malleus, incus, and stapes. Malleus is the largest and most lateral of the auditory ossicles. The handle of the malleus rests on the internal surface of the eardrum. Incus. The incus transmits sound and auditory waves from the malleus to the stapes. Stapes are the primary responsible for sounds conductions from the tympanic membrane to the middle ear.
Good day day everyone, I am Janelle Avanzado from DSN 1B. Today I'm going to discuss the trunk. Trunk has two parts, which is the vertebral column and the thorax. Vertebral column is enclosed to the spinal cord. Vertebral column has 26 bones, 7 in cervical, 12 in thoracic, 5 in lumbar, 1 in sacrum, and 1 in coccyx. Thorax. Thorax is the anterior bone of the thorax. Thorax has 12 pairs of sternum ribs.
Appendicular skeleton is divided into two divisions, which is the upper division and the lower division. Upper division is also divided into two, which is the shoulder girdle and the upper extremity. Shoulder girdle has two parts, which is the clavicle and the scapula. Clavicle is the anterior and located between the sternum and the scapula. Clavicle it plays an essential role in functional movement, and this is also the connection between the axial skeleton and the pectoral girdle. This is also to act as a brace for the shoulder, and clavicle is important because it helps increase the stability and the strength of the shoulder. The second part is the scapula. Scapula is also known as the shoulder blade, and it is the posterior and it anchors the muscles that moves the arms. Scapula is the joining force between the clavicle and humerus. Also, this is the shield of the rib cage and the lungs. Upper extremity has 6 parts. The first one is the humerus. Humerus is the proximal arm bone, and this serves as the point of attachment for nerves, muscles, and mobility of the elbow, upper arm, and hand. Humerus also provides structural support to the arm. The other parts of the upper extremity will be discussed to you by my groupmate.
In our upper extremity, we also have our ulna and radius and our carpals. Now let's begin discussing. Now let's try to touch or feel our forearm. We can feel that there are two long bones which are called the radius and ulna. These two long bones makes up our forearm. Now, how can we differentiate these two long bones? Let's start with the radius. The radius is the lateral bone of the forearm. It lies laterally and parallel to the ulna, and it is also located in our thumb side of our finger. The radius is shorter than the ulna and has a small proximal end that articulates with the carpal bones at our wrist. Now let's discuss the ulna. The ulna lies medially and parallel to the radius. The ulna is located in our pinky side of our finger, and compared to the radius, the dimensions of the ulna are reversed because it has a large proximal end which articulates with the humerus and a small distal end. Now, let's begin discussing what is carpals. First, the carpals are located in our wrist area, and the carpal bones are a group of 8 irregularly shapes and is organized into 2 rows, the distal and the proximal. In the proximal row, the lateral to medial, what we have there is the scaphoid, the lunate, the triquetrum, and the pisiform. And in the distal row, we have the trapezium, the trapezoid, the capitate, and the hamate.
I is Almendras, and I'm going to discuss what is metacarpals. Metacarpals are the long bones in the part of our hand. There are 5 metacarpals bones, 1 for each digit, including the thumb. These bones are essential for the structure and the stability of the hand. They connect the wrist bones to the finger bones. These bones offer flexibility and mobility, enabling various hand movements. And now we're going to discuss phalanges. Phalanges are the bones in our fingers. In each finger, except the thumb, there are 3 segments. The proximal phalanx, closest to the hand, the middle phalanx, if present, and the distal phalanx, which is fingertip. Phalanges enable us to bend and move our fingers, giving us the flexibility to grip, grasp, and perform fine motor skills. They also play a protective role by covering the sensitive tips of our digits. And now, in lower division, I'm going to discuss the pelvic bone or os coxae. The pelvic bone, also known as the os coxae or innominate bone, is a critical component of the human pelvis. It is not a single bone, but rather a fusion of three bones, the ilium, ischium, and pubis. The pelvic bone is actually made up of three bones that fuse together as a grow. These three parts are ilium, which is the wide upper part of the pelvis that resembles butterfly wings, the ischium, which forms the curved lower part of the pelvis and the back part of what we sit on, and the pubis, which is located at the front of the pelvis and forms the part of our hips. Its job is to support the weight of our upper body and protects our internal organs like the bladder and parts of the digestive system. It also plays a role in our ability to walk, run, and move around because it connects our legs to the rest of our body. And additional for the pelvic bone differs between male and female. In terms of shape and size are the requirements of childbirth. In females, the pelvic is wider and shallower to accommodate the passage of a baby during childbirth.
I am Jericho Atalig and I'll be discussing lower extremity. When we say lower extremity, this refers to the part of the body from hips onto the toes, and it plays a vital role on standing, locomotion, and supporting our weight. The lower extremity contains 30 bones. One of these is the femur or the thigh bone, which is a single bone on the thigh region, and it is the longest and the strongest bone of our body and accounts for approximately 1/4 of a person's total height. The main function of the femur are weight bearing and gait stability. There are three parts of femur: the proximal, the shaft, and the distal. Next is the patella or the kneecap. It is the largest sesamoid bone of the body, and sesamoid bone is a bone that is incorporated into the tendon of a muscle where the tendon crosses a joint. The main function of patella is to help the muscles, tendons, and ligaments work correctly, as well as helps moves the knee and also gives protection onto the anterior surface of the knee joint. Next is the tibia or the shin bone. It is the medial bone of the leg and it is larger than the fibula with which it is paired. Tibia is the weight-bearing or the main weight-bearing bone of the lower leg, and it is the second largest bone of the body next to femur. The main function of tibia is to accept and distribute weight across the knee and the ankle joint. And the next is the fibula, which is a bone located at the lateral side of the leg, and it does not bear weight. It is served primarily for muscle attachment and is largely surrounded by muscles. The main function of fibula is to combine with tibia and provide stability to the ankle joint.
My name is Maudgeyam Adangi and I will be discussing the tarsal bones, metatarsal bones, and the phalanges. Tarsal bones is the bones of the ankles. The posterior half of the foot is formed by the 7 tarsal bones, and these are called calcaneus, talus, cuboid, navicular, medial, intermediate, and lateral cuneiforms. Metatarsal bones is the bones of the instep. The anterior half of the foot is formed by the 5 metatarsal bones, and these are called first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And lastly, phalanges is the bones of the toes. There are 14 phalanges. Big toes is consist of 2 phalanges, and these are called distal and proximal phalanges. The rest of the toes is consist of 3 phalanges, and these are called distal, middle, and proximal phalanges.
Thank you for watching!
We are the Group 1.